We don't get to hear those hymns of these special saints unless you come to church on those Sundays when we celebrate their feast day. So I'll give you a little bit about Saint Demetrius, and then we will end with their the Gospel and Epistle reading on that day if you're here in church on the 26th. So saints are ordinary people. They come from all ages, all educational backgrounds. Some couldn't even read. Some were monks and priests and soldiers, shepherds, mothers, fathers, children, and they come from all different worlds. All different countries, I mean, not just Greece. Sometimes we think they're just from Greece. But the Holy Spirit has granted them special gifts of strength and healing because of their deep love for Christ and their fellow man. They hated no one. Martyrs are people who willingly suffer death for Christ and their love for Jesus Christ and their love for their fellow man. So Saint Demetrius was born in Thessaloniki, that's in Greece. It's a city named after Alexander the Great's sister. He was the son of pious, noble parents. He was a teacher of faith, of the faith of Christ, and he converted many to Christianity. When he became the Duke of Thessaly in about the year 290, he was made soldier of the imperial army. And the emperor at that time wanted Demetrius to help him as a soldier fight people, but also persecute the Christians. At that time, the emperor didn't know Demetrius was a Christian. When he found out, he had Demetrius arrested, bound, and put in a jail. Some people call it a bathhouse. Some people say it was like a cesspool. So garbage was thrown in, and it was pretty stinky. And there's a reason I want to make a point about that smell. But an angel of God would visit St. Demetrius in his jail and said to him, "Peace be with you, O sufferer of Christ, be brave and strong." So at that time, they used to have these competition like gladiators, and the emperor Maximian had a friend who was like a giant, Laius. He was over 7 feet tall, big and tough. And these stadiums, he would compete with people, and of course, back then, they competed to death. So the emperor was so proud of his giant gladiator, he invited all the Christians to come fight his gladiator. Most of them died. But a young man, a friend of St. Demetrius, named Nestor, wanted to fight the giant. So he went to Demetrius and he said, "Can you give me your blessing? I want to fight this giant named Laius." And Demetrius gave him his blessing, and in the middle of the stadium, Nestor said, "O God of Demetrius, help me." And some of the stories say he even did his prayer to encourage the Christians who were watching. He showed the power of the Christian faith. Nestor killed the giant Laius with one swift blow to the heart. Well, guess who was not a happy person? The emperor. He was so angry he had Nestor and Demetrius killed. This was about the year 360. So Demetrius is held in high esteem. He's loved by the people of Thessaloniki. He's the patron saint of agriculture, peasants, and even shepherds. The Crusaders back then, I read that they chose him as their patron saint, and they brought some of his relics back to France. Now, Peter Cook went to Thessaloniki, and at the end we have a little relic. A relic is a little piece of sometimes the bones. I think you took them. Maybe a little bone of the saint. And you can see it's in the bottom of this cross. Father Larry will hold it and will show you. So where St. Demetrius passed away, they built a little church and then eventually a huge church. You should go online and see how big this church is. It is tremendous. And he is also called the Myrrh bearer. And maybe because of where he was kept for a year before he was finally killed by the emperor, if you visit his relics, there is holy myrrh. Myrrh is a type of oil that has a very pleasant scent. Some people say it's very hard to even describe the scent. If any of you have been to certain monasteries or maybe to visit a church or a tomb where a saint is buried, you might experience this. Many years ago, we went on the pilgrimage with Father George, and we went to the monastery of St. Catherine, and they brought out her relics, her skull and her hands. And you were able to smell the very fragrant. That's because even though these saints have died many, many, many years ago, the blessings and the Holy Spirit exudes from their relics, sometimes even their clothing, and reminds us that they're still alive in spirit. And that's why we continue to pray to them. So he's known for curing many illnesses, of course, being a soldier. And a lot of times the icon of St. Demetrius shows him with a shield because he was a soldier, and a spear. He had to kill people, but also a cross because he was faithful to Christ. He's also known to help and heal people with eye diseases, ocular diseases. Maybe they were blind or had cataracts. I found a story that I found very interesting. Emperor Justinian wanted to move the relics of St. Demetrius to Constantinople. And when he was about to do this, flaming sparks came from the tomb of St. Demetrius, and a voice was overheard, "Stop, do not touch." So his relics are still there. If you talk to Phyllis Manton, she's been there many times. Thessaloniki is a pretty big city, so a lot of people, we've been there, and I'm sad to say we never visited his church, his cathedral. So remember our martyrs and our saints through the stories that you can read online, through the hymns that Miss Joanne sang from us, and my favorite is through the icons, because they tell us so much. So in closing, before I close, let me talk about the Epistle and Gospel reading, because your activities that you'll be doing with Father and Presbytera through Hope and Joy and Goya, there are soldiers for Christ. How would you handle the following situations? A good soldier of Christ, that was emailed to you. Very good, a lecture is all set. On becoming a saint, and then a word search. And I only found one last night, so I got to do my homework. It's a little hard to do those. So the Matins gospel reading on that day of St. Demetrius is, when your faith is questioned, don't worry about what to say, like your defense. Pray about it, and Christ will give you a mouth of wisdom, and your enemies will not be able to withstand or contradict. So sometimes when we're in a situation and we have to talk about our faith, we don't know what to say, we don't want to sound silly, you just be quiet for a few minutes and the words will come to you through the Holy Spirit. The epistle reading on that day is, be strong in the grace that is Christ, share in suffering as a good soldier of Christ, and an athlete is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. So none of us will ever be put in jail, hopefully, for being Christians, but sometimes our faith is tested in other ways, and our activities through Hope and Joy and Goya will go over those. And the last is Gospel of John, chapter 15. Love one another. A servant is not greater than his master. We have to love our enemies. So, anybody here named Jimmy, Demi, Demetra? He's a Jimmy? Okay. You can tell him stories about St. Demetrius then. Jimmy the Greek. What you can do is color the icon of St. Demetrius and give it to him this year. You can color this icon and give it to him October the 26th. So that was a little less than 20 minutes. Does anyone have any questions? I want you all to look up your saints. If you have an unusual name, ask your parents or your grandparents, because when you were baptized, you were given the name usually of a holy person, possibly a saint. Yes, Lucia. How did he what? The emperor who had Demetrius killed died on, I'm not sure how, on his own, but the people of that area built a little church and then a big church over his tomb. And you can visit it today, and I guess you can even go home with holy myrrh, I would think, maybe it's... So those of you who like to play, if you have a piano, this music was sent to you too. You can play it on a piano. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
What's up?
I can't wait till we're in class together.
Okay. So I think what we'll do for all of you is we'll have you all kind of come up. We'll start with Electra. You can come up. I don't want you to touch and I don't want you to kiss, okay? But you can kind of look at the cross really quick and look down at the bottom. You can see the relic. And then just kind of bow your head respectfully. And then you can go out that way and go ahead and go outside. And I think there's some cookies and stuff out there for you guys as well. God bless you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you, parents. Thank you, Dr. Sieben. What a blessing. And then, yes, give her a round of applause. Who's next week? Is it Julia? Julia is going to be next month, and it's going to be St. Catherine. So that's going to be a really awesome saint. All right? So we're going to keep talking about saints and how we become like them. So come on up.